I'm 27 and I have a twin sister. Sounds like it should be a perfect balance, right? Well, for most of my life it wasn't. My parents? They were sold on the idea that my sister was some sort of prodigy, the golden child. Meanwhile, I was the black sheep, that invisible figure in the background. While my sister was conquering the academic world, I was obsessed with sports, but that didn't fit their grand vision. So naturally, I was the disappointment. They'd compare us constantly, like it was some twisted competition I never signed up for. And no matter how hard I tried to keep up, I'd always fall short. It was soul-crushing. Growing up, my self-esteem took a serious beating. Our birthdays were a shining example of the divide. My sister had these extravagant, showy parties with her friends, and there I was, an afterthought. Sure, I was present, but I wasn't really there. I wasn't included in their world. Once in a while, I'd be dragged into these tea parties she had, and weirdly enough, I loved those moments. I'd never admit it back then, but those gatherings? They made me feel a part of something, even if it wasn't truly meant for me. There was one person, though, my grandmother, who saw me. Every time she visited, she'd bring my favorite chocolates, slip me some money, and remind me that I mattered. She was the only one who treated me like I wasn't a shadow in my own family. But even her comfort couldn't shield me from what was coming. As time passed, my sister's success turned into this looming cloud, and I was the one constantly getting drenched in the rain. My parents started making snide remarks about my grades, downplaying my ambitions. It didn't matter if I worked hard, pushed myself, nothing was good enough for them. Athletics, the one thing I excelled at, was ripped away from me because they wanted me to be more like her. It was like my identity didn't even matter. Then came the big fight, college. I had dreams, ambitions. But my parents, they had other plans. They wanted to dump most of their money into my sister's education, pushing me toward community college like that was all I was worth. My grades were solid, but that didn't seem to matter. I was just the afterthought, the less important twin. But my grandma? She wasn't having it. She stood up for me, threatened to cut my mother out of her will if they didn't give me the same chance as my sister. It was one of those moments you don't forget. Someone finally fought for me. After days of arguing, my parents gave in. It felt like a small victory in a lifetime of battles. I owe my grandma everything for that. And when I left for college, it was like taking my first real breath. No more comparisons, no more being judged through my sister's lens. I could finally be myself, without the weight of someone else's success on my shoulders. That's when I learned what it really means to be free. I met folks and made friendships with like-minded people. Despite the mental and physical wounds I'd incurred as a result of my family's actions over the years, I focused on putting it all behind me and making the most of my college experience. During this period, I found an aptitude for logo and graphic design. I chose to study Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator using YouTube courses in order to supplement my income. I then contacted local businesses in my region to see if they needed a logo designer and gradually began compiling a portfolio of my work. Throughout college, I maintained my side job and never asked my parents for a cent. When I finished from college, rather than taking a corporate job, I realized I could develop my side hustle into a respectable business. As I already had clients who were willing to keep me on retainer after years of loyalty, I decided to move into an apartment with roommates, and my life began to improve. Meanwhile, my sister was succeeding and preparing for further education in biology, according to what my parents said. Our communication faded throughout the years, especially when we attended different institutions. My parents never really tried to contact me throughout the years. As a result, I too gave up. After a while, I was financially independent and had been seeing a therapist for years, so I'm slowly healing from my childhood scars. As a graphic designer, I understand how essential evaluations are. Typically, I ask my clients if they enjoy my work to leave a review on Google or Facebook so that additional people learn about my company. Recently, one of my high-end clients was quite pleased with my work, so he sent a lengthy statement on Facebook praising my professionalism and work ethic. The kind gesture startled me, and I began receiving messages from people who are interested in my work. His post was visible by my whole family and close friends because he tagged me, so some of them began posting comments under the posts congratulating me on my success. I thought things were finally going good for me, but then everything changed for the worst. My folks phoned me unexpectedly last week and requested a meeting with me. They had never expressed an interest in my life or even paid me a visit at college, so I was surprised. I considered it for days and even spoke with my therapist about it. Perhaps they knew the trauma I had suffered as a youngster and wanted to apologize. After so many years, I planned to meet them for lunch in a public spot in case things did not go well. And I needed to go quickly. On the day we met, my father instantly went in to hug me, but my mother, as always, kept her distance and smiled briefly. We sat down, placed our orders, and made some small conversation. I was already nervous and simply wanted them to get to the point. So I inquired why they had now contacted me after all these years. My mother then dropped a surprise. My sister, the family's golden child, was 2 months pregnant, and they had only just found out. The news took me off guard and I nearly choked on my beverage. My sister had a one-night romance with a guy at a party, and she was now pregnant. She had just found out. And because she had never asked for his name, she couldn't find his father. As a result, she intended to move back in with our parents, who would help her care for the baby while she continued her studies from home. My parents called me, as they put it, because they needed my financial assistance. They stated I would soon be an uncle, and they wanted me to help care for my sister's forthcoming kid. My cheeks flushed with rage as their words set in. After years of feeling like an afterthought, they finally reached out to me for help because of my pregnant sister. I immediately alerted the server to seek the bill, paid it, and abruptly departed the restaurant. My mother pursued me, pressing me to be a good son and saying that the baby required a decent role model. I got home and shut off my phone since I was getting a lot of calls and texts from my folks. After a night's sleep, when I turned on my phone the next day, I discovered not just missed calls and messages from my mother, but also a lengthy text from my sister. In her message, she made demands, urging that I care for her child and be a responsible uncle. She informed me that I was doing well in my life and making excellent money now, so I shouldn't be selfish and could afford to send her a couple $100s per month to assist her care for the kid. I didn't bother to respond to her. I ended her call. I couldn't sleep that night and stayed in bed for several hours. I remained wide awake as the issue continued to worry me. My parents' condescending tone, their abuses over the years, and my sister's entitlement were all too much for me, and I felt as if I couldn't take it any longer. This is when I decided to create a Facebook post about my problem using my own ID. I assumed that only my family and close friends on Facebook would see this, and I simply wanted the truth to be known. I wrote down everything, even how inadequate my parents had made me feel over the years, and how they had only reached out when they needed money. After posting it, I turned off my laptop and went to sleep. When I awoke the next day, I realized that the post had gone viral in only a few hours. People from my friend list, family, and even total strangers left comments and shared my postings, expressing their support. Many others appeared to understand the abuse, and the message in the article spoke to them. There were hundreds of comments from people expressing their own similar memories of familial violence, which was devastating to read. My parents must have gotten angry calls from several of my relatives, since my mother contacted me agitated and told me to erase the post right away. She claimed that she had always feared I wouldn't amount to anything and questioned my work achievement, which is why she hadn't contacted me sooner. However, after viewing my client's great review, she understood my business was prospering, and she contacted me to beg for assistance with my sister. She insisted that we maintain the family's reputation. My father responded differently. He sent me an apology, but also requested that I remove the post so that we could address the problem discreetly and avoid additional harm to the family's image. My parents appear to have been taken aback by the abrupt public disclosure of our problematic family dynamics throughout my youth. My family continuously preferred my sister and told me that I would never be successful in my job. However, once I made a Facebook post calling them out, they suddenly wanted to play family with me. Despite my parents' repeated requests to erase the posts, I opted to leave the job because I wanted to prove them all incorrect. So now I can get the final laugh. This choice has split the family. My grandma and other family members have reached out to me and publicly expressed their support. A few others, particularly on my father's side, have urged me to keep family concerns inside the family. So I remained for calling out my parents on Facebook, refusing to remove the post, and eventually having the last laugh. After so many years, it's been a crazy week since I last shared my experience, and everyone's love and encouragement has been astounding. It's encouraging to know that I'm not alone during this moment. We are from a close-knit community, so everyone knows about us. After I posted on Facebook, which appears to have sparked talks within our social circle, my parents have received criticism not just from relatives, but also from close friends and neighbors who were previously ignorant of the amount of favoritism and emotional abuse. My relatives explained why my family contacted me unexpectedly. My parents are presently enjoying retirement, and they have used the majority of their savings over the years to pay off their debts and travel the world. My sister never had a job since my parents wanted her to focus only on her academics, which meant she had no funds. With the delivery of the baby, they knew they required financial assistance. When they saw the Facebook review that my customer had made and tagged me, they understood that my business was going well and that I was making more than they had anticipated, and they were astounded that I had proven them all wrong and established myself. Instead of wishing me well, they used this as a chance to request financial assistance. However, when I rejected and chose to openly confront the problem on Facebook, they were forced to back down. My sister contacted me a few days after I published the piece, and as predicted, she sounded outraged. Our parents appear to be refusing to financially support her and the kid, having recognized they can no longer coddle her and want her to be accountable for her own choices. They are fine with my sister moving in as long as she abandons her aspirations for further education for the time being and begins hunting for work using her biology degree. They also want her to contact the father via prenatal paternity testing so that she may tell him of the pregnancy. After hearing what my folks said, my sister, who had never been required to take on any responsibility in her life, was perplexed. She believed she could bring in director anger on me, but this time I refused to remain silent and determined to defend myself. I told her she wasn't entitled to my hard-earned money just because she became pregnant after a one-night encounter. I told her that her lack of maturity was not really my concern. While I may have came out as harsh, I feel that was a turning moment in our talk, when my sister realized she could no longer intimidate me. I concluded the conversation feeling satisfied that I had spoken my opinion. I immediately wrote a group text to my parents and sister, stating that I expected a formal apology for the abuse I had received. I wanted them to realize the anguish of maltreatment I had received over the years. The phrasing made it apparent that this apology was more than just a request. It was a must, an essential step toward healing. I highlighted that I had reached a point where I could no longer continue on the same route. Their deeds had taken an emotional toll that they could no longer tolerate. If they refused to take this step, if they refused to accept their mistakes, our relationship may be over. Now I'll wait to see how they react. The ball is in their court, and I hope they make the correct decision. Even though it's been a month, I'm still receiving incredible support and answers from strangers on a daily basis. I feel a lot lighter now that I've spoken my truth and don't have to hide my history from the public. First and foremost, I want everyone to know that I am completely safe and not despondent, as many people appear to have inferred in the comments. What occurred with my parents affected me at first, but I've now learned not to hold it against them for my own mental health. My therapist indicated that I can't actually control other people's behavior. The only thing I can control are my own feelings. Since my ultimatum, my parents have tried to contact me, alternately apologizing and downplaying the problem. They're still trying to cope with the public exposure of our family troubles, and it's evident that their personal reputation is more important to them than comprehending my emotions. After considerable thought, I decided to remove the Facebook post off my page, even though I had intended to leave it up indefinitely. I recognized that the post had achieved exactly what I had intended for. A public statement condemning my parents for their years of abuse. My mother still believes that I might have done better by bringing these issues to their attention years ago, rather than allowing them to fester for so long and embarrassing them publicly. This upsets me, since as a teenager I attempted to talk to them about the matter, but they never listened. I informed her that if she believes it was my responsibility for how she treated me, I would like to distance myself from her since I did not want this to interfere with my mental health any longer. My sister took her time, but she ultimately apologized, which astonished me. I'm not sure if it was the pregnant hormones or a sudden insight that drove her to reach out. In the lengthy text, she indicated that she now finally understands the suffering I had to undergo as a result of being treated differently all those years, with all parents no longer offering financial assistance and constantly telling her to accept responsibility for her actions. She was feeling the same pressures I did growing up. She went on to say that when she first discovered she was pregnant, she was filled with panic. The reality of having to deal with this on her own struck her hard, and she recognized she had made mistakes. Financial restrictions loomed, and she admitted that she had mistakenly aimed her rage at me. She had learnt from our parents that I was doing well in my work, which made her believe that she could expect me to contribute. When I refused, she realized she needed to take responsibility for her own life. She informed me she was doing everything she could to get work so she could be a better role model for her child. She apologized for asking for money and told me that she would never do it again. She stated she wanted me to be a positive masculine role model for her baby. Although I was skeptical, I accepted the apology and we met for lunch. I was very pleased to learn that she was seeking for work, and I offered to assist her with her resume and cover letter. Since we started chatting, my sister has suggested that we tell our parents about what I had through so that they may better appreciate my point of view, but I don't believe I'm ready to have a talk with them. This weekend, I finally paid my grandma a long overdue visit. She's been my rock, my pillar of support, always at my side throughout the years. It was past time to convey my deep gratitude for everything she had done for me when I visited her. My childhood memories came flooding back. Everything I adored about her was the familiar aroma of her home-cooked meals, the creaky wooden floorboards, and the warm grin on her lips. We spent the entire afternoon discussing our lives, dreams, and families. She said she was proud of me for standing up to my parents after all these years. She informed me that she had often brought out my parents' unjust treatment of me, but they had never recognized it. I told her that no matter what my parents had put me through, I didn't blame her, and I wanted her to know that her generosity to me had had a huge impact on my life. As for my graphic design business, which many of you have been asking about, it is doing quite well. My email has been flooded with queries, just as I predicted after my high-end customer wrote a great review of my work. The gratification of knowing that my clients value my work is indescribable. It's not only about expanding my business, it's about proving that I'm on the correct track. Each new inquiry seems like a step closer to my goals, and it fuels my desire and determination to keep moving forward. It's incredibly amazing to realize that all of my efforts and hard work have finally paid off. Overall, I'd say that this experience has been difficult, but also quite freeing. For the time being, I intend to focus only on my career, personal development, and spending time with supportive friends and family. Although the route to recovery is lengthy, I'm not sure where it will go. I'm grateful for the outpouring of love and understanding from the Reddit community. While I've made tiny strides toward repairing connections with my family, I am dedicated to prioritizing my own well-being and ensuring that I am no longer subjected to emotional abuse or favoritism. I quote, LL continue to provide information. If there's anything intriguing, things have gone pretty well, and a lot has happened in my life during the last 6 months. Meeting my niece was one of the most lovely and life-changing moments. My sister, who was expecting, gave birth to the most lovely little girl. She requested me to be her godfather, and I could not be more honored by this wonderful duty. It quote as a new chapter in our family's life, and I'm excited to see this little one grow up. In recent months, my parents have made serious efforts to repair our relationship. It turns out that my grandma and other family had a heart-to-heart conversation with them, and it appears to have helped. My mother, in particular, has worked hard to connect with me on a deeper level. She admitted to feeling humiliated and sorry that she couldn't be a better mom to me. Her genuine apologies drove me to tears because those were the words I had hoped to hear for years. I couldn't help but wonder how things would have turned out differently if Mom had said these words to me when I was younger, thus sparing me years of misery and pain. My father, on the other hand, has urged that I play golf, emphasizing how it may help me attract more high-end clientele. Golf has proven to be more difficult than I had imagined, and mastery will undoubtedly need extensive practice. Nonetheless, I like playing with my father every weekend and am constantly improving with each session. My connection with my sister has changed drastically over time. We now meet for breakfast every Saturday morning to catch up on each other's lives. We also discovered the father of her kid and reached out to him. They both decided to co-parent the child via a court-signed form. I met the guy, and he seemed to be a real person. Since becoming a mother, my sister has worked hard to transform herself. She seemed to have recognized the value of understanding and empathy. Something was long overdue. Furthermore, she has landed a work-from-home job that meets her needs. She is carefully accumulating money to move out of our parents' home, and it is encouraging to watch her make positive changes in her life to help reconcile long-standing resentments in our family and unsaid sentiments. We have all decided to go to family therapy shortly. It has not been an easy process, and our chats have occasionally become emotional. As a result, going to therapy will help us to have more open and honest interactions professionally. My graphic design firm has grown significantly as a result of the abilities I've acquired over the years. I genuinely enjoy my profession and am grateful for it. I quote, "Am delighted. I discovered my real passion early in life. There's nothing more rewarding than working on my designs and serving my clients. I've successfully expanded my clientele to an international level, following several great evaluations from my current client base. If all goes well, I aim to give free seminars to share my professional knowledge with college students and aspiring graphic artists. I recall the difficulties I had when I was new to this area and had no one to advise me. So I'm hopeful that my workshops will make a difference for these people. I'm optimistic about the future and the prospects it brings for both my job and my personal life. Life is excellent now, and I am so thankful for everyone's love and support over the last several months.